Welcome everyone to our second panel discussion. We don't need any introductions this week. All of the panelists from last week are here with the exception of Nigel Watson, Major Moore, Lizette Zaguire, and Iman Malik were unable to make it this evening. So Earl Odom, the former president of the NAACP, has agreed to join us tonight also, since he participated last week. And we'll go with, we had sent out an agenda with the topics. We're going to discuss in general, defund police, demilitarize the police department, and body cameras for tonight. We hope to be done by 8:30, at least that's been our commitment and promise. Again, the chief will start with a couple slides. He won't be as lengthy as he was last week, but he's going to feel free at any point on any slide to start asking questions such as Mucci did last week when she broke the ice and knocked the chief off his game a little bit. So welcome, and Chief, please begin.
Good evening. Welcome back, everyone. This evening, as you received in the email, that we're going to try to stick to a couple of specific topics just to kind of keep us focused and have some fruitful discussion. So the topics this evening are going to be, the first topic would be defund the police. Second would be demilitarization of the police department. And number 3 would be body cameras. We felt these were good topics only because throughout the last several weeks, they become very hot topics throughout the community, nationwide. So we just want to get that conversation going and kind of drill down a little bit into that. So being that our first topic is defund the police, again, I don't want to sit and present, but I will read through just a couple little things to get the conversation going, and then hopefully that just takes off from there. So we hear it, we see it, it's all over the place right now. The banners, the slogans, mainstream media, defund the police. So what does it mean? There is a misunderstanding that this movement is designed to abolish police departments by stripping them of all their funding and resources. Police departments serve a valuable purpose in deterring crime and preventing violence in the community. The reality is that if police departments were removed, those communities where the voices for defunding are currently the loudest would likely suffer the most severe consequences in regards to increased violence and other criminal activity. All residents within a community suffer when violence persists because bullets have no names. So when we hear the slogan, the term, the coined phrase, defund the police, it comes with consequence. And we need to have this conversation to decide what the community feels defund the police means. I need to have a better understanding as a leader of the organization what people mean when they say defund the police. Does anybody have anything?
Well, I'm not, super educated, but I don't think that when we say defund the police, we're saying shut the police down, shut the whole department down. What I feel like we're saying is a couple things. We're saying defund the police. We'll fund you, but not overfund the police. The police are not mental health counselors. You guys are not social workers. So some of the extra funding and overfunding that you're getting, I feel needs to be put back into communities where people, because you guys can't do everything. So I think that's the misconception when you guys say defund. No, we don't want you guys to break down a police station, but we feel like it should be a share fair when it comes to money for the police station, because a lot of police stations are overfunded, and the question is, what really, besides the trainings and, where is it going? What is it really doing for the community?
So I brought a breakdown of our police budget so we could explain that. And you brought up a couple of great points there about overfunding versus funding appropriate programs. In my career, I am not aware of any time, especially as the chief of the organization, I have never had a budget that included any type of funding for mental health, for any other of the services that have been presented to police officers to manage. They're just additional requirements that have been kind of placed upon the backs of the police departments, not just here in Middletown, but in a lot of areas. And they do require a lot of resources, and we have some statistics to talk about that, because I know that's been a very viable point in the defund movement or defund conversation, the mental health. I've been an advocate, the mayor's been an advocate. We've been working with the mental health organizations here within our community and some on the county level to find solutions. So police police officers aren't trained, and I talked about this last meeting 2 weeks ago. We're not social workers. We're not counselors. We get a brief training in how to identify people in crisis. We do CIT training, is crisis intervention training. It is presented through our police academy for every new police officer. I actually have officers on my department that are certified trainers, but there's a burden from, that's just one of the many things that I believe that we have taken on that really falls outside the parameters of police work. Homelessness, again, we become that social worker trying to find resources for people. But there are things that we never budgeted for. And in a city such as this, the city budget as a whole, not just the police department budget, does not have the umbrella over those services. Those services are on a larger scale on the county and on the state level. So that conversation, I think, needs to continue on those platforms as well.
Chief.
Yes.
Excuse me, if you're asking the question, it's on. You highlighted several things that you said you guys were not trained to do. If you're not trained to do it, then what kind of liability does that pose, both for the citizens that you are attempting to serve, as well as the officers who are doing it and not thoroughly trained to do it?
Great
For example,
question.
when you talk about mental health, you're not equipped to do that, and as a result, people who suffer from mental health maladies or problems are at risk, because in many instances they either end up in jail, or in some instances they end up on the other end of the spectrum. They end up dead.
So great points. And when I say not trained, we have a brief training in it. We're not doctors, we're not counselors, we're not social workers. So we have a brief training on how to identify people, and that's what the police should be doing. We shouldn't have the role of finding the actual solutions, and it's a revolving door. What can we do with them? We could divert them to another program or to the hospital. Most of the time, they're triaged in the hospital and returned right back into the community. Sometimes they go out to a different program. So we need to come back and look at the organizations, especially here in Middletown. We have a lot of mental health organizations. They need funding. We've had conversations with them. They need staffing, they need funding, they need training. But what happens when they don't have it, they push the button to call the police. We've had conversations where they said they're scared.
This is a bigger issue, though.
It's a bigger issue.
It's a bigger issue for a couple of reasons. It's a bigger issue because you can't walk up to an individual and tell me that they've got multiple personality disorder.
Correct.
Okay? And if they are a prime candidate for suicide by cop. There's no way you can tell that. And so if you're in a situation like that, then what happens? And as a result, I'm a cause kind of guy. The reason that they have that issue in the first place is because there's improper medical care. It's a whole systemic issue that leads back to you being reactive rather than the funding being directed to a place, since we're talking about defunding, to measures that would be proactive so that we minimize contact with police in the first place.
That'd be great. And let's take it back even further. Let's go back to when they deinstitutionalized mental health patients. And I'm not saying they need to be institutionalized, but this is an adverse effect of that. When facilities were closed down and resources were closed down, they became members of our community, and there's outpatient programs, but I personally believe, in my experience, there's a lack of resources available to manage the number of people that need mental health services. And I'm not saying just in this community, I think that's a larger issue.
Oh, so let me ask this question. So we're focusing on Middletown right now. So let's see some numbers, because you guys get quite a good funding here. So where does the money go for Middletown? For the police station, where does your funding go? What's the stats, the numbers? Let's see that.
So my 2020 police department budget is $9.9 million. If you look, we'll break it down. The first, on the top left, personal services. That's contractual services. That is officers' pay, benefit packages, retirement, everything that goes into someone's salary and benefit package. The next line down is overtime. Personal services, you see out of the 9.9 million, 8.2 million goes to salaries and benefits. 90% of the budget goes to paying the officers. That's not just the police officers, that's my clerical staff, the dispatchers, the maintenance people, so on and so forth. Overtime, that covers any type of events that we do, any extras, any large-scale crimes that takes the officer over, above and beyond their normal tour of duty, court time, anything associated outside their normal course of business. They're entitled by their contract to be paid at a time and a half rate. CSCA longevity pay, that's stipends, again, contractual for my civil employees. Any of the dispatchers, clerical people that are going to receive a pay stipend due to their longevity, their time of service.
Chief, can you
That's
focus
what
on
that equates to.
the large items rather than go one
problem.
by one?
The other large items, uniform and dry cleaning, $223,000. That is, again, contractual through collective bargaining agreements. That is, each officer gets an allotted amount for new uniforms every year and dry cleaning of their uniforms every year. So when you add up the 70 officers at the allowed amount, that's what it equates to. That also includes new officers. If we hire new officers, they're entitled to receive their required uniforms and hardware. So that would come out of that as well. You see gas and oil, that's the fuel of police cars at $99,000. Repairs to equipment, that's any type of equipment from our police cars that need regular maintenance, such as oil changes, tires. They run 24 hours a day, so they need repairs. And as our fleet ages, that number goes up.
Mucci, are you looking for anything, are you looking specifically for a line for mental health? Is that what you're looking for?
No, I'm just looking for, I want to see how much you guys get and where is it going? That's what I kind of want to see.
Primarily the personal services. The issue with as it relates to the mental health is that's on a large city level, that's controlled by the city. But on a small city level or an upstate level like upstate New York, most of the municipalities, it goes through the county. So the Orange County Department of Health runs mental health programs for Orange County. So we don't have a mental health unit, nor could we afford to have a mental health unit within the city of Middletown. But the argument that we were pushing for years was mobile mental health, which is a county operation, but is not sufficiently funded. I think there are 3 or 4, Chief,
There's
for the entire county?
one team for the entire county.
One team.
And that's a lot of work. Once you're satisfied with here, if you have any questions, we could go to some of the numbers for the mental health so you could see the requirements that are placed upon us. And if I can I go back to Bishop
Well,
Rollins
yeah,
real quick?
because there's 3 major categories. You got personnel. Of that 9.9 million, if you break it down for us in percentages, if the number for personnel is 65, 75%, if there's a portion allocated for, or budgeted rather, for operations, and then there's going to be a portion budgeted for training. That's the part I'm interested in.
So you could see our personnel training budget is $32,336.
How much?
$32,336.
Out of 9.9 million.
But again, 90% of that 9.9 million goes to personnel services.
Not disputing it.
And also
That's the
with
question she's asking.
with Department of Criminal Justice, most police trainings, are done for free.
Break
Most.
that down for me on a percentage basis. Of 9.9 million, somebody's got a calculator here. 32,000, okay, is not even 1%.
But you're missing the point of,
I want him to make the point clear for us.
we don't get charged for the training.
That's the point. I want him to make it
0.3%.
clear, though.
The other thing is that DCJS training is free, but the other thing that we do is we spend some of that money to do training of our personnel so they could come back. So instead of sending the whole department out, we could send 1 individual or 2 individuals. They become trained the trainers. They receive the training and the ability to instruct. And it's not just that simple. They have to go through instructor development. There's a lot of layers that go into that. But once they receive that certification to become a trainer, they come back and then we host in-service training. So now we might get 70 officers trained in a subject matter that cost us $600 to have one person trained in. But when they bring it back, they take that experience, that training for $600, and they impart that on all 70 members of the department. So we're trying to get the most bang for our buck. Additionally, through the Police Chiefs Association and other entities, there's a lot of free training that we take advantage of. We pay a yearly stipend to the association for unlimited training, except for specialty trainings. There's some fees associated with that. When we go to other vendors outside, there's a lot of private vendors that offer specialty training. A lot of the supervision level training is done by outside vendors. Not that long ago, we brought in, on the county level, not just here, on the county level, and we sent several of our people, almost all of our supervisors and a good portion of the officers to de-escalation training that was put on by a very renowned attorney out of Connecticut that goes nationwide instructing on that matter. So he did 2 platforms. He did one during the day for the supervisor level. He did one in the evening for the staff level. So we tried to get as many people into those as we can. But just because it says 32,000, we are investing a lot more than 32,000 into training.
There's a minimum of 21 hours per person.
I'm
As
sorry.
Lieutenant Dolan said, there's a minimum of 21 hours per individual in our department that is required by accreditation standards.
What kind of training?
That's a variety of training. So every year during our in-service training, that'll be procedural justice. We just had a series, just this past couple weeks. You have workplace harassment and sexual harassment required trainings, but they count towards that. You have use of force, which is a long training because you have to go over the new policy or the new law changes. You have to go over policy procedure. And we have to now follow the state guidelines where it used to be done in-house based on specifically our policy and procedure and laws. Now there's a state platform that must be done. There's a PowerPoint that's presented by the state. That was just recently done. So these are done between the fall and the spring of every year where every person in the department, we've done throughout training active shooter training because let's face it, there is still a threat of hostile incidents. We do reality-based training, which is scenario-based training, twice a year, where every officer goes through it. We do go to the firearms range 4 times a year for 2-hour blocks. What other trainings, Lieutenant Graz? Lieutenant Graziano handles our training division. So.
The reason I said that, because when you talk about $32,000, that number is 0.003%. It's less than, it's not even a drop in the bucket. And training is, when you hear the word defund, I think even as Mucci said, and these other panel members should chime in as well, it's probably not the right word because we all know that we're not looking for anarchy. But at the same time, I think, especially since we have an executive order from the governor to identify what we're going to do as a community, we need to be able to say, okay, if training is this issue, or if we're talking about not defunding the police, then how are those funds going to be used to ensure that we don't have a George Floyd incident, to ensure that we understand how to de-escalate, that we understand how to engage in community policing, that do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand, and I really truly believe we are meeting those requirements with the different training platforms that we have. I'm open to as much training as we could afford, but if you ask anyone in our organization, I have many people that have come from other organizations, some very large organizations, they've never received as much training as they have here.
Can I just say something though? Because you guys, again, you guys are getting all of this training. All of this money, all of this training, even if it's free, all this training. How do we decipher what training is effective and what's needed and what's not? Because if we're paying for all of this, we're getting our tax dollars or whatever, and all this training is going on, but it's not being effective in the community, then what's the sense of all of this training? So how can we go about making sure that if we are funding the police and they're getting these funds, that is going to go for effective training, that is going to be effective in the community, that we see results? Because you can say, me and my officers are getting 100, we're going to 100 classes, we're getting 100 different trainings, but if it's not working in the community, then why are we still funding these?
What makes you think they're not working?
I mean,
we still can't,
let's talk about here.
Talk about Middletown.
Let's talk about Middletown. We still have certain issues going on in Middletown. We still have racist police in Middletown. Even though you guys are doing a great job, Chief, you can't be everywhere at all times. And when you go home, you don't know what really goes on. And there's people still having testimonies. We still have officers that don't understand how to approach a civilian. They don't know how to ask the right questions. They're still being aggressive. We still have these issues, and we can't act like they're not still going on. It may not be broadcasted as we see what's going on, but they're going on. So if you're saying, okay, Mucci, Mayor, we're paying $15,000 to have to learn how to de-escalate. And then we continuously see officers escalating and not using their de-escalating tactics. Why are we paying for that? Why is that funding?
So you're not suggesting that we shouldn't have the training?
No, what I'm suggesting is we figure out what the best training is for your community. Because if people are saying to you, if we're crying out to you, Chief, and we're saying, your officers have, I'm just speaking, your officers still have an issue with racial profiling. Obviously, we need to figure out maybe that training for Middletown. I'm talking about Middletown. Maybe that's a specific training that we need to focus on rather than these other trainings that are not. Like, if that's the issue, if your community is saying we're being racially profiled, when the cops stop me, they're snatching me out of the car, they're not asking me questions, well, maybe we need to focus on that training. Why are we taking classes X, Y, Z when we need to be taking classes A, B, and C?
So a lot of the training that we put out is required by DCJS or standards of accreditation. So we follow that platform. There's a lot of stuff that goes along with that, mandated trainings that have to be on a yearly basis, use of force, the workplace and sexual harassment, those types of trainings are required to be done annually. Some of the others are required to be done annually, such as the firearms, so on and so forth. But we have been putting a lot of effort into that. And when you say if they're not working, so then we need to put more resources there. We don't need to do away with it. That's my take on it. So if you feel that in the community we're still having an issue there, instead of us talking about that not working and go do away with it, maybe we need to revamp that platform and put some additional resources towards it rather than take it away. Can I ask you, I mean, you've been all over in the last several months. What issue do you see here in Middletown that needs immediate attention in the training field? Here in Middletown, not outside of Middletown, but your experiences here in Middletown.
From the testimonies, from the testimonies for Middletown.
Can I just, before you answer that, when you say the testimonies, remember that's one-sided.
Right.
And we don't have all the facts.
Right.
That is someone's.
Right.
And believe me, sometimes that view is very accurate, but I just don't want that to be, we're only going to take what somebody told somebody that told somebody. I'd rather it be firsthand. If someone could sit and say firsthand, this is what was done to me, or I saw this, that's what I want to hear.
Well, for me personally, you know what, Miss Theolonica Monk, maybe you should take this.
In Middletown, have I had any issues in Middletown? I have not. Are there issues? For instance, the other day, my nephew was stopped walking to my place of business, and all they said was, you fit the profile. I have a problem with that.
So, did you hear them say that, or is that the way it was portrayed to you?
Yes.
You heard that
He
said?
was texting me while it was happening.
Okay.
Like, Auntie, they just stopped me, and they said I fit the profile.
Can you give me a little bit more detail to that?
He was walking by Geno's on Monhagen Avenue, across where Geno's is, right there. My ice cream shop is on Lake Avenue. He was walking to my ice cream shop past Geno's. They were at Geno's already. They didn't follow him or anything. They were already there. He was walking by. They stopped him and said, "Excuse me, come over here. You fit the profile." He said, "I fit the profile because I have dreads." They said, "No, it's not like that."
So, obviously you know a little bit more about this, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, so can you share with the rest of the panel what was going on at Geno's that morning?
What happened at Geno's?
To what you know.
To what I know, I didn't know anything was happening at Geno's that morning.
Did you learn after that?
Yes.
Can you explain? Because again, I don't want to,
Oh, okay, I
don't want it to be that we just randomly selected someone walking down the street.
Yes, yep, that's what I was thinking. I was told later, after the fact, that there had been a robbery or something in that area.
So just to expand upon that, because it isn't common knowledge, Monday morning at just about 6 o'clock, there was a vicious robbery of the proprietor of the Geno's Luncheonette. That's why the officers were there. They had a video description of somebody. It wasn't a very clear that we could say, hey, that is such and such, but you have a male figure, and they're doing their job. I don't know what the personal encounter was with your nephew, but the way you just explained it, he was in the area, the time of a robbery. Someone said, I don't know if they used those specific words, but someone said you fit the description. To some extent, they had a conversation with him. Did they mistreat him at all?
No,
Okay.
no, they didn't.
Were they not polite to him and
No.
courteous to him?
No.
Okay, so they're doing their job, and that's what we have to remember, is we still have a job to do. Because if we don't do our due diligence, and I'm not saying your nephew was the suspect, but what if that ended up being the suspect that just viciously attacked your neighbor, your business neighbor? Wouldn't you want us to do our due diligence to find that person?
Yes.
So when you say that's a bad...
Description, that means I don't want to see the person that y'all arrest is a white guy 5 feet tall.
So
Then we have a problem.
Sometimes the video is not clear enough for us to tell what color somebody is. Some people don't have great video, color video. Some people are black and white videos. So we don't have what you see on CSI, and we can't make every business owner have this great video. So we have to use what we can garner from people's video or from firsthand accounts or witnesses or descriptions or whatever it is and do our job. If I could just bring you back real quick, about a month and a half ago during the demonstrations, I think it was the day after the demonstration, there was an incident that went viral on social media about my officers, if I'm correct, it came out that they ripped these young men out of a car at gunpoint for no reason. So there's a lot more to that. And instead of jumping into the social media right away saying, look what the Middletown police did, we need to get the facts. Because if we want to build trust in our communities, if we want to work together, we can't immediately jump on that the police did something wrong without knowing the facts. If my officers did something wrong, we'll address it. We could have that conversation. But when we jump and say the police did something wrong without knowing the facts, because you just laid out the story, and I don't know if anybody else in here felt that that was wrong what the officers did to your nephew, but in no disrespect, but you jumped on social media right away saying, I'm going to get answers for this, this is
Yeah, I'm
unacceptable.
gonna get answers. I didn't say we're gonna protest and we're gonna get crazy. I just said I want some answers.
But listen, I'm not trying to attack you with that either, but if you're concerned about an encounter, I'm available. Before we go and put it out how bad Middletown Police is and what they're doing wrong, let's get the facts. We want the respect, you want respect, the community wants
Put it
respect,
on there at
but
the
we have to
end.
work together.
Y'all let them go.
Can I ask a question, Mayor DeStefano? Are you over the city budget?
Over, you mean for this year?
Yes, or just, do you distribute? Or do you look over it, or you have anything to do with the city budget?
I present the budget with the Board of Estimate, yes. The department heads present their budget to the Board of Estimate requests. The Board of Estimate, which is myself, the council president, and Alderman Massey, the finance chairman in the back, we do conduct we conduct sessions with the department heads, then we adopt the budget, and then we present it to the common council. The common council cannot expand upon the amount of money that's being spent, but they can make cuts in that budget. For 8 years in a row, we've met the tax cap. That entitles people to their state refund also, but we have met all of the requirements of New York State in our budget process.
Hey, Chief.
And by the way, our police funding, manpower, I believe our high point was somewhere around 80.
77, last time was
77.
2009.
We are now at 69 or 70. That includes 2 part-timers?
Yeah, with 2 part-time police officers, I'm currently staffed at 70 sworn personnel.
Right. And the reason we did that over a period of years was because in 2005 through 2009, there was a buildup of the militarization of the police department. There was a SWAT team that was created, a local SWAT team, that I opposed in 2004 and vetoed, but in 2005, 2006 forward, it came back in, the commission and the council put that SWAT team back in place. It required more manpower, it required the leasing of tank-like vehicles, and you'll see a graph, I think we have it, where during that period of time, which is going to lend to your argument, during that period of time when we built up staffing and put police and tanks on Army uniforms or military-type uniforms on the streets, crime rose. And overtime to well over $1 million a year in overtime. I think one year it might have peaked at 1.1 to 1.4 million.
That was a function of society, though.
Well-
You didn't cause that. I don't
Well-
think you're saying you're,
I was present when the living here all my life and on the street that I grew up on, Prince Street, when I saw a man was held up in a house and neighbors are standing around and I saw a tank ride up Prince Street and the people said, and I think Mr. Massey was there also, and there it is. That's the same vehicle. I don't know if that's the same scene. But yeah, I think that lends itself to a reaction by the community.
Yes.
Now, 2010, we eliminated all of that. And if you look at the graph, you'll see a constant decline. And I'm not saying it's solely that. I think it was, I mentioned last time that we had differences with the police chief from '05 to '09. 2010, we had a new chief with a new philosophy. Chief Iwanchu has expanded on that. But I believe there's a relationship between how the police department responds and reacts and comes across to the public, and how the public reacts to them. And I think this graph says a lot of things. So we have taken action. A lot of the discussions that are going on nationally, we have already done here. And this is just an example of all of that.
I'll say though, Mayor, some of the numbers that you're looking at though, to what Mucci's also asking, and District Attorney Hoovler, is that there are some things behind those numbers. For example, you had a continuation of, which still goes on to some degree, and we're thankful that it's not as bad, but there is still a war on drugs. Mm-hmm. There is still a war on crime. Mm-hmm. All of that is part of a system that disproportionately has created the problem, especially in the black and brown communities. And that's why we're here today. Let's not lose focus as to why we're here. The reason we're here is because of something that happened, a watershed moment of an event that took place halfway across the country in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that really builds on some things that have been going on systematically for an extremely long period of time. And so if it would be far from us, it would be irresponsible for us to try and target it to, a particular incident, but for us to overlook it would be irresponsible and not deal with it right here and now. This is not going away. It's not going to go away. And so, when I hear the fund, because we're trying to stay on topic, we're talking about defunding the police. I don't think I've heard anybody say that that's a good idea.
No.
However, what we are trying to understand, especially in terms of our responsibility as a community panel, working together to get to that place that the executive order is talking about, is what does this mean? If defund is not the right word, I'm hearing training, I'm hearing budget, then what is the right word? What's the right number? What are the right programs? If we are saying we've got something that's going on in the right direction, then what's it going to take to continue that? And if not, how do we correct the things that are deficient?
And I just
Want to ask with $9 million, with $9 million and a police department that lacks black and Hispanic on your force.
No, that's not true. Hispanic on the police force?
We got 7.
You have 7?
Yeah.
Okay, black and brown, excuse me, correct that.
7 brown and 1 black.
7 brown and black, okay. Why we couldn't get, because the last time we were here, we were talking about, and a lot of us were saying, people are not applying. So with $9 million, I know that we could take at least 1,000 or 2 from each of these items, and why not have a program, since we're talking about training, why not have it
An incentive program.
An incentive program for, snatch those kids.
What if we told you
They do
that we run
ROTC in
juvenile
school.
police academies, and that a year prior to the last exam, and Mr. Massey is here again tonight to touch on that not only did the police department itself bring and welcome the public in and do the outreach to have people come in to help train for the exam and to study for the exam, we did all of that. That's not reflected in your training budget, but we did all of that. And I think at some point,
So we're saying we
there's a
did everything that we
responsibility.
could, and that nobody still wants to get involved.
out of 500-plus applicants, less than 40 were African-American.
That's a bigger issue. And we know empirical studies provide enough data for us to understand that the greater the diversity is on the police force, the less problems you have with racism.
Yes.
And I'm confident that you know that.
Absolutely.
And I'm not
Well, that's the
suggesting that
study
you
said.
haven't tried to hire, but if we've tried and we've been unsuccessful, then what that says is that we've got to do something about our efforts or the methodology that we are employing to get them. So that's, to me, a place where we ought to make a note,
And that is
an
the
action item as
that's
to
why
how we
we're
get it
here,
done.
is to
Exactly.
find out what is on
What
the
do we
mind of
need
the
to do?
community. What can we do?
To change that.
Here's what we've done in the past. And I think you're losing sight of also that for 10 years, we had an African-American who ran the Middletown Police Department.
He's the only one.
He was the only one on the force.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the outreach into the community was there. He ended up on that state. We looked at everything, including whether whether the tests themselves, which are authored by the state, were fair. And so we requested that Chief Bethencourt be on that panel that would review the questions, because there could be bias in the questions on why people didn't score in the past, or why people were afraid to take the test. Maybe they were skewed towards people who grew up in a police environment and knew, that their whole life they knew those answers. So Ray was on that for quite a few years. He might still be on it. I don't know. But so we've tried. What we're saying is we've done all these things, and obviously we're not having that much success. And Bishop Rollins has been helpful in the past, and so have others. What else can we do to join with you, the people in the black and brown community, to bring people into this? And we're doing junior police academies. We're reaching kids at very young ages, and we're going to expand on it more. When you talk about investment, we're looking at that recreation center now, where we have a deal with the Orange County Police Academy that's going to be do nothing but do outreach with children, and most of it are black and brown kids. And we're trying to cross that line. We haven't had the success, so that's why we're here. What can you do? What can you say to us? Here's what you should be doing, Dave.
And there's a reason for it.
Go ahead.
Brother here, Mr.
Hold
Williams.
on.
No, he was he wanted to address and ask a question before it went into every place else.
Oh, okay.
We planning to get out here at 8:30, but we going same way like the last time.
No, it's a good topic, but go ahead.
So the mayor, you may have answered this already. If and when it gets to the point of defunding the police, who is responsible for carrying out that action?
Well, primarily that would lay with me, and that's not going to happen while I'm mayor. I think I've said it publicly, I think it's a foolish term, and on a city of our level, I think it's a foolish concept.
Yes.
That we work, a decision like that in a city like Middletown, a small city like Middletown, should be made by the people here. They should dictate what they want. Now, not wanting to defund police doesn't mean that we don't want to fund other things, like what we're doing with the recreation programs. We have expanded our recreation program and our outreach with the police and through other programs more than any community that I know of. So we're investing. We look at it as an investment in kids when we have the Orange County Police Academy across the parking lot from our recreation program, participating in boxing and training and police youth academies, and all the other things they've been doing. So I'm looking to invest more in the community with that interaction between police and our kids versus just cutting police. And I haven't heard one person say that they don't want, when they call 911, they don't want a police officer to arrive.
Right.
I think we want that. I've already, I've stated that we've gone from 77 to basically 69 officers, and we've had success. We've cut out the military type stuff. We need to invest more. We need to invest in our camera system. We know we're lacking. I admitted that at the first meeting. We didn't do it right with cameras over the years, and we'll take the responsibility for that. We're going to get it right this time, but that's not defunding. That's $1.5 million over a 10-year period. So I think we should be looking, you want to do outreach and training for young people to get involved in, to take the test, to training. We're there, we're offering those services. But what I need to know is, what do you as a black and brown community and black and brown leaders in this community, what can you tell us what we should do in order to get your sons and daughters to take the police test?
I got a suggestion.
Okay, Anthony, go ahead.
And a question. I know Chief, you mentioned the trainings that you got, each year that's mandatory,
Yes.
right? And you also mentioned some extra training that you do on your own. I'm wondering if the extra training is targeted specifically for a need, that, we can improve on, that we all can agree that we can improve on. And the other thing is, I think that the recruiting can start to be, can actually trickle into the school, right? Middletown High School has super courses. We have college courses. From what I heard last time, you need 60 hours in order to take the exam, and you have to be 19 years old. Am I correct?
30 credits and 19 years of age.
So 30 credits.
Yes, to take the exam.
So, we have students that's graduating between 30 and 60 credits. Can you imagine, a world where we have students graduating in our community that's able to take the test right after graduation and then go to ARC or wherever they go off to and get their bachelor's degree and want to come back home and actually police in their community? So I think that we can collaborate on that. I'm not the decision maker, but I think that that's something that we need to tap into. We already spoke about that.
We spoke about that. Also, for the last several years, not to cut you off, we have done the career fair at the high school where we've sent police officers and set up a table for that information purpose to try to encourage people to take that exam, and we explain, like, this is the salary and these are the benefit packages and the retirement plan to try to entice people to come and join the forces. So I think we just need to continue working on that, as you've said.
Yeah.
I also think that we need to take a little bit different approach. I feel like everything that you guys done in the past, I think you need to wipe that out really quick. Not start over, but get like a different eyes than what you had last time. Because a lot of the suggestions that we hear, well, we've done it in the past and we've done it, okay, but in 2020, it's just a little bit different. The temperature, your community, your youth.
In regards to what, then, Mooch?
In regards to life, our ambition is a little bit different. Our dedication and our drive is a little bit different. So maybe 5 years ago, you didn't have nobody that wanted to actually be cops and wanted to sign up. Now, seeing what's going on, you got some youth that are ready to be on the front line and take over. So I think that as we go forward, I need you guys to get that what you did in the past out and just look at it a little bit differently, because like we said, what happened a couple years ago, what's going on right now, you got a different mindset, you got a different drive, you got a different group of people, you got a different generation. You got a generation that's hungry, and then you got a generation right behind them that's ready to follow. You got our teenagers that are 20 and 25, you got our 18 and our 16-year-olds right behind them. They're ready. What's next? So I think we got to start looking at this open eyes. Maybe some of these things that you guys have, restart it again, but just open eye. Chief, let's keep it real. You have racist officers still in your police department. All the great work. It's beautiful. We're not trying to defund you. The community don't want to defund you. We don't want to stop, and I want to put that out there if anybody's going live. We don't want to shut the police force down. We'll be nothing without you. But we do want to know that we that pay our taxes, we that invest in our police, we want to know that everything that you guys got going on is going to be beneficial to us. And we need you to understand what happened in 2018, 2017, 2019 is different than July 2020. That's
Hopefully, a result of this, at the end of these panel discussions, that each person will send something in writing for the council to, something specific, that for them to look into as we, ultimately the commission and the common council are going to adopt this plan, of course, with input from this panel. So if you can be more specific, and we'll get, because we want to move on to the next topic before Earl yells at us.
I think what Moochie...
I just wanted to speak on, when you're talking about the training that these officers are getting, maybe it's not the training, maybe it's just the officer.
Hello.
And that's been a conversation going back to Ogden when he was a chief.
He went back.
But Moochie said you have racist officers. You're saying maybe, but if there's something
She's
specific.
talking about racist, I'm talking about training of officers.
But
Maybe
I don't
they don't
hear
get
a problem with any specific problem at this point where people are saying that these things are happening in this community. I know they're happening nationally.
My response is to what was just brought up by Moochie, and that is, like you said, training, because we had to train too. I didn't take the position that I wanted, but it happens in training. Some people just don't get it. They want to do it their way. A lot of officers spoke, and I'm talking about officers that are from the city, about how they was bullied as kids. That's why they became police officers or law enforcement officers. It happens.
Of
But,
course,
like I
they're
said, I
people.
don't think the training is bad. That, like I said, it could be just one officer. One officer don't spoil the bunch. You get rid of the one problem. If he has a lot of complaints against him, then that should tell you right there.
Earl, when it comes down to a bad officer, what you need to look at is, are there procedures in place to address in a fair and equitable manner the complaint by the civilian? And
Are there?
Absolutely. You have a civilian police commission here that reviews, I believe we've averaged 7 complaints a year from over the past 3 years, if I remember the numbers. Many of them were just verbal things. I don't know, we're talking in generalities, so I'm trying to narrow it down. If there's recommendations on training, please make them. But I don't want to enter the conversation with that we have race. I don't know what's in a police officer's heart. I don't know what's in Mucci's heart or in your heart. I don't know what your people are thinking, or I'm thinking, or the chief is thinking. All we can do as a city is judge them by their actions while they're working, and we even judge them by their actions off duty. We have done off-duty discipline and you see a lot of departments are doing that with social media. So rather than speak about specific things or just general things, let's try to, because I want to get on to the next topic, let's try to move it into submit in writing. You'll see there's a couple things on your desk where some people did submit some comments in writing. And if you can give us something specific, what specific training would you like to see? What do you think would be helpful? Do we do police psychologicals before we hire people? Yes. Have we rejected people for hire based on those psychologicals? Yes. So we do certain things but we're not going to be perfect. This is people. On both sides, your side, me, the people out in the street, and we just got to get to a point where we can come up with a report at the end of this process.
Every law enforcement agency in the United States have to take a psychological examination because they're carrying a firearm.
Okay.
Okay, so that goes, but a lot of people are afraid of that.
They have to take a test when they start. They take a test when they start.
They take this is what I know. You take the test, they may pass the test, but the psychological, what kills a lot of people. It knocks a lot of people.
Okay, so we going with the first thing. The panel agrees we don't want to defund the police.
Yes.
We're all in agreement of not defunding. Aye. Okay, we're not defunding.
We are not defunding. You can just take that picture down there.
There's one other thing, though. I would like to say here that before he did, the success with the Orange County Sheriff's Department in terms of minority hiring, they are much more successful. There's a reason that we have a disproportionate number. We got a significant number of black corrections officers.
What are the numbers? What are the percentages?
We have a whole lot more.
A lot.
A lot of them. There are a lot of them. I should have got specifics, but I can tell you that it's significantly more than the one that we have in Middletown.
Okay.
Now, there's a reason. I'm not pointing the finger for the fact that we don't. I'm trying to figure out a solution. Why and Mr. Massey may understand.
I know what the problem
Is it the same test?
Each department has different
What I'm
standards.
trying to
It is
say,
the
it's a
same
civil
test.
service exam, is that correct?
Yeah, but it's a difference.
So if
Not
it's a
the police
civil,
exam.
if it's a civil service exam,
Come on up to the mic,
and
please.
several of them end up in law enforcement,
You're missing one criteria.
okay, then help us so we understand.
Criteria. We in Middletown have a higher standard, and I'm not knocking anyone else, any other department, but we require 30 hours to take the test, 60 hours to take a job. I don't believe, and I could be wrong, but I don't believe the sheriff department and the correction has that same standard. So that does limit, although, once again, we had over 500 people take it. You and I tried it, and I want to throw this out to everyone here. Whatever you think I can do, if there's a forum that you want to set up, I'll be there. I'll do whatever you want, within reason, obviously, to get more applicants. but that's all we can do, is try to get them to take the test and help them with the test, because as the mayor said, there's a course that's being given. I've got some literature. In fact, I brought some over to Freddie Williams the other day.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. To piggyback off what he's saying, he's brought me material, and I've reached out to young fellas to actually come on and take the test. So he's made an effort to come to me in my business, and we've talked.
The point is, we want a solution. If the Orange County Sheriff's Department is successful in securing or having a greater amount of black and brown officers, what are they doing? I'm saying the same thing to you. Then whatever they're doing, maybe we don't have to recreate the wheel.
Here.
You got to understand too, Bishop, that the sheriff's department covers the county.
I got that.
City carries.
It's their one test.
I understand that. So they get.
Can't get him to the test. Why are we talking about the test? We can't even get him
And
to
then
the
just-
test.
Yeah,
People
Chief,
can't
from
get
any
into the
place in
test
Orange County to work
because
for
y'all
our
don't
police
look like
let the
department.
chief will
So they don't
respond.
want to come on board.
So we have done a lot of outreach. As we've heard over and over, we've had 500 people. We've gone into the high schools, the colleges, we've done outreach. I know, Mucci, you're saying it's a different time. Right here is my millennial. He is a social media whiz. He's putting stuff out on social media, website. We're trying to do all those platforms. We're missing something, so we could incorporate your assistance maybe. Maybe you guys could help us on the next round. We can't do this by ourselves, obviously.
Can't.
So I need you guys to help encourage people to come out.
When's the
Starting
next test,
salary
Joe?
is $65,000.
When's the next test?
2000.
The problem is this. The problem is this. They don't want to come and see a whole bunch of Caucasian officers. They want to see themselves over there to be like, ooh, that could be me.
So
That's the problem.
when we send officers out to do this recruitment, I send Officer Ryer, who is an African-American male. He has done it. We have sent our Hispanic officers for many, many years. For anybody that knows, Officer Steve Mercado has since retired. He was a Hispanic officer that was very well known in the community. He, for years and years, did it for that exact reason, because we wanted to make that relation, or that, to let people know, like, you are welcome here. So we've done that. Obviously, there's still something more. We need the support. We need people to say, hey, this is a great place. We can't have that negative, oh, Middletown is this or that. It's a great place to work.
You need
the
the younger
salary is
ones
great.
that have-
Which
that
I
were
feel
tied
like
with
the
young
best,
people.
if we're gonna have really good for a solution, the best solution that I've heard all night was Aunt Williams. Let's take it to the schools. Let's get the high schools. Let's figure out how to make it a curriculum.
Yes, like
let's figure out.
ROTC.
Yeah,
Like
let's
ROTC.
figure out how to. That's that right there. You want next? I'll pass it to you. But I think if we're coming with a solution, maybe you can't reach the streets. Well, let's take it to the schools and let's make it a curriculum or something. Go ahead.
Who wants to finish?
Well, the reality is, we got to introduce the kids earlier. They're not getting to the test, right? There's a stigma sometimes in our community about, being a police officer. If we don't have positive interactions, sometimes that's not something that we're going to pursue. The reason why I said we start in the schools is because, we already have school resource officers there who, some of them are doing an amazing job. I can only speak to the ones I speak to. And they're willing to, go into classrooms. Maybe we incorporate them into, like she said, some curriculum where that they can actually talk about scenarios and communication and things like that. And it has to be ongoing. It can't be like, if we start when they're freshmen and these relationships build, throughout the year, then by the time they're graduating, this is something that they are motivated and they're passionate about, and I think we already started those conversations. But I think that, what I'm hearing is if we continue to do the same thing, we can't expect different, results. So I think that that's something that we can do early. We have programs I can only speak for the high school. I'm at the high school that biomed programs start freshman year. And each year, these kids have a different, class connected to the medical field, which then builds their interest. And I think the same thing, one of the things I think that we all can agree on is that the more diverse the department is, some of these issues that we're talking about decreases. And we're talking about recruiting, and the way we do that is through the youth, if you ask me, and it's really introducing them a little earlier.
I agree, and that has been the focus. So when you say we've been doing, I've heard this, it's not working. We have changed in the last couple of years to do a lot of outreach, community outreach, to build those relationships with the youth so that we could establish that trust so that they can and want to be police officers. Also, we have talked about, Anthony, you and I, about programs in other schools where they have a law enforcement program. So that is something that we can continue to talk about and get that possibly going. I've told you and I've told others in here, we do an internship with some of the local high schools, the Pine Bush High School, the BOCES law enforcement program, where the officers come in, or the students come in and spend time with us. They work with the officers. So there are platforms available. And even if Middletown doesn't have it specifically in their facility, it is available through the CTEC program at the county level, which is available, if I'm not correct.
Excuse me,
To
Chief.
speak on, just to speak on that real quick, I wanted to tell you that, I don't think we have the same program that we talked about that Pine Bush has, but we did have the My Brother's Keeper program at the high school, and 2 of your officers was a part of it.
Big part.
And the 15 of those boys, they all graduated on time, and 3 of those boys are going into law enforcement. And they had amazing interactions with your officers. And just to hear them, during some of our MBK events, Pastor Williams can talk about it, speak to your officers about, what to look out for. Those kind of interactions is important. And, even during graduation, they're talking about, possibly coming back and, actually serving or working in their community or becoming a homeowner and things like that. These are conversations they have with your officers.
And that's great, and I'm glad to hear that, because we're not going to get that immediate response or success. But when we talk about what are we doing, we have been doing. Can we do more? There's always room to do more. But we have to have some time to see the results.
Chief, before we move on to anybody else on this, because
I
the
just
next
want-
test is September of 2021, so we all have some work to do.
22.
Massey said 21.
When is it?
I'll defer and I'll wait till after.
I wanted to
Been
touch
chomping
on
at the bit for
Can
a
you
while, so.
clarify, Massey, is it 21?
I wanted to.
Yes
I
or
wanted-
no? Is it 21 or 22?
Excuse me, Chief. I wanted to touch on something. I'm part of the MBK program that Mr. Williams brought to the Middletown district. And one thing that I noticed with these kids, we're building up their leadership skills. So to touch on what you said, Mrs. Monk, they might look over and be like, oh, I don't know. But when you build up that leadership skill in that kid, he will make that change. He'll take one step to make the change instead of being nervous and scared. So if you build up this leadership skills in these youth, it'll be better for everyone at the end of the day.
Just clarify the test date, because that's what we're looking for right now.
The state,
It moved the test.
Well, let him, he's the guy that's coordinates it.
Right. the state offers the test every year. Our lists are good for 1 to 4 years. Right now, we have, I don't know, Chief, I think still over 350 people on our list. I wouldn't give it every year because it's not fair to the people that are taking it and that are on the list. We only hire. I will apply, and the next test that will be available to us will be 21. Our list actually is good until 22, but if this will help things and I can get some help from the people involved here, I will give the test next year. And this will give us some time that we can get together and do some recruiting. And like I say, Bishop Rollins and I tried it several years ago, but it didn't work that well then, but we're moving ahead and
Well, we're
we'll
getting
try it
different
again.
ideas here, so September 21 would probably be the next date for the.
Oh, there's no question.
All right, so, yes,
Yeah, I have a differing opinion on some things. I think when it comes to police, you have to have a college education. If you don't have, in today's world, and I come into police work, when I come into police work, it was always 60 credits, military. The way things are changing now, you need some life experience. You need to have a sound education. It gives those years of education gives people time to mature. It gives people time to figure out what they want to do, and maturity is key. Chief, do you require a polygraph?
We do not.
Okay. That's another issue that confronts a lot. But your real issue that you're dealing with here, again, college degree is my personal opinion. And I believe that as you move across the country, you are seeing the standards for policing moving up and up. That police departments are requiring higher education all the time. There are some departments in the United States now that if you want to be management level, you must achieve a master's degree or have it before you get into management. But your biggest problem you have in the state of New York when it comes to hiring is a civil service test. It's competitive. Those who write the highest score are going to be at the top of the list. And those who put the time in are the ones that are going to rise to the top. And you can try to tutor people, you can try to get them to where they need to be, but as long as the civil service is the way it is, civil service will always be somewhat of an impediment to hiring local people, to hiring, the people that come through the school, because again, someone can come from outside, come in, they score 99, they're at the top of the list. And I'm going to tell you that what I see across the county, I see all of our local talent leaving.
Yep.
They go to Nassau County, they go to Suffolk County, they go to the New York State Police, they go to New Jersey State Police, and most recently, the Pennsylvania State Police is bringing job fair stuff into Orange County.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're coming to Orange County Community College, they're coming places, but again, they're coming there not to recruit people with 2-year degrees, they're looking for, when you're done with your 2 and you go get your 4, here's our card, call us back. So those are just all things to consider, but I will say this. What was the gentleman's name, the officer chief that used to go to the job fairs?
Mercado?
He used to set up right next to the DA's thing at the Middletown and whatever. He was a great resource in recruiting. And he used to tell every kid that walked in there, get your degree and come back to us. Because education is an equalizer in everything. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, can we move on to the next topic? Demilitarization. Anybody else on that topic? Okay. The demilitarization, I think I've already touched on it a little bit.
Yeah,
so
we don't do that here, right? You stopped that in 2010.
maybe we can,
Quick question about that.
Yep.
Since we dismantled our SWAT, and we haven't had it for a number of years. The only question I would ask, though, is do we still have those practices for our regular patrol officers? Just because we don't have tanks, and maybe we don't have flashbang grenades, whatever, all the other things that are associated with a militarized police force, are our officers expected to carry out militarized practices and procedures as officers?
Well, I think you have to kind of identify what type of procedures.
Let's use protesting. That's one of the ones that comes to the forefront in terms of the problems associated with a militarized police force, where they actually use tear gas and some of the other things to push them back, rubber bullets and some of the other things. Are our officers, what's Middletown's policies or our procedures in terms of dealing with some of the things that other police departments used a militarized approach to, or militarized tactics?
So here, the demonstrations that we experienced were very peaceful. You were privileged to sit in on one of our briefings, and you heard firsthand the message that we all put out to the rank and file that were working. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any comment from anybody about any type of aggressive behavior towards the demonstrators, any type of militaristic approach towards the demonstrators. We participated. We made sure everybody was safe. We had teams, everybody had a responsibility, and we gave the demonstrators their ability to peacefully demonstrate and have their voice. We assisted them. Halfway through the first one, Moochie threw me a curveball and said she wanted to change up the route. What did we do? We accommodated, and we made it happen.
Yes,
There's some people that were not happy that we were there, but we were there to ensure the safety, because you have people that are against the protest as well. So we ensured people's safety. We're walking through the streets of the city. There's still traffic to deal with. Our goal and our main issue, or main focus, was to ensure everybody had a safe demonstration.
Well, we saw a situation where we helped. We helped de-escalate a situation because there was one.
Right.
So let's not act as though it didn't happen. There was a situation, and we, the community, worked with you to de-escalate that situation, and it worked out extremely well.
we
Now, I
did.
can tell you that that same element, though, went to another municipality, and it ended up in a different kind of way.
And I can't speak for another
Okay,
municipality.
and I'm not gonna go any further with that. What I'm saying, though, is, my question is, I want to make sure that this panel and the public knows as well, when it comes to militarized police action, are there any procedures or practices that that our police force here in Middletown is charged or trained to do?
So our officers are trained to protect people's lives. So if there's an active shooter, a hostile situation,
There you
they're
go.
trained to address that situation. Some people may perceive that as a militaristic training, but that is training to save someone's life. Are we doing our own search warrants and barricade subjects or hostage situation type events anymore? No, we are not. However, if there's immediate response needed of the police officers, the police officer, whether it's the newest police officer or the most senior police officer that's working patrol, is expected to go and put their life on the line to protect that person. And that's what they do, because they're good, they're dedicated people that are going to do what they can to save someone's life.
And that's important, because the data shows that, unfortunately, the militarized procedures in many instances were used for something as simple as serving a warrant, and a lot of black and brown people died as a result of it.
So in regards to the warrants, we have a matrix in our policy that if we're going to serve a warrant, whether it's for a murder suspect, narcotics, whatever it may be, we have to go through a matrix, and we have to answer the questions. And there's a numerical number at the bottom, and if it meets this number, we could do that operation ourselves. So if it meets this number, we need to call in a specialized team to do that for the safety of everybody. But it depends on the circumstances. There's not a cut and dry answer to that.
Okay, are there others who?
I wanted to really speak real quick to, and going back to the protest. Even during that time, there were questions that were asked. When we came into the briefing, one of the things that you did say, Chief, to your officers was also to make sure that they had thick skin, because some things might be said that they might not like. And I appreciated that so much, because it was a tactic in de-escalation and the possibility of whatever might occur. You guys were prepared for anything. And I want to quickly allude to the fact when you talked about active shooters a few years ago, when we were dealing with the swatting issues and things of that nature. There was a high level of anxiety in this community, especially from those families that moved here from out of New York City that experienced 9/11 and things of that nature. It was important at that particular time that people felt safe. And so we never want to lose sight of the fact that whatever issues we deal with, that the police still need to be providing that place of safety. And so, demilitarize, doing all of that at the end of the day, there's still necessary training that I know that you all need to have in order to ensure that everybody is covered. It's just that the practices, Bishop Rollins was saying, the practices that go into simple things like the serving of a warrant and things of that nature, those practices are not a part of it. But it doesn't negate the fact that there are some great aspects to that training. I mean, I went through some, military training just to do work overseas as a missionary. So I would understand some things. And so, but it's not that I had to use it, but I needed to know what was going on. I needed to know if I got into a situation, or if I was in the bush or something happened. I needed to know what to do, how to act, where to go, what to say. So, you all carried out that particular, during that time, you carried out everything with great distinction during that time. And so I will say that much. I don't think that this particular subject is a big subject for us. I think that it's really a moot point to a certain degree. on this particular subject. We already know what you all do in that respect. I will say this, that it's incumbent on us as the leaders, in the black and brown community, and there's more of us, it's incumbent on us to make sure that this information as well is disseminated into our communities so that people, you know, you can lead a horse to water, they say, but you can't make him drink. And so it's incumbent on us to make sure that we share this information as well. And whatever, even going back to the last subject, sharing that information, there's a responsibility that we have as well to make sure that we are educated in these areas. So I'll say that and I'm done.
If I could just follow up, I did have Bishop Williams, Bishop Rollins, and some others, Mr. Odom, attend the briefings for some of the demonstrations, something that we've never done before. And police departments typically don't bring civilians into their briefings for any type of event. So some of my staff was a little taken back by that, but I think it was great on both behalves. Each of you addressed the group, very powerful addresses, and I think a lot of that resonated with people. And in my PowerPoint, I actually utilized a phrase that you used, Bishop Rollins, about when we put on this uniform, the expectation. And whether it's this uniform, your uniform, and the next uniform, there's an expectation. And I think your message that day really resonated and hit home with a lot of my staff. So I appreciate that, and I think it was good in both ways, like I said, for you to see, this is our mission, this is what we're putting our troops out to do today, and at the same time, you were able to address them, so.
Beautiful. So with that being said, what are we gonna do about these body cams?
Yeah.
Right, Mooch?
Yes, body cams. Body cams.
You're going to have them.
So here's our last topic then, for the evening. Body cams, hot
Haven't got
topic.
them yet, but we're going to get them.
Hot
Hot
topic.
topic.
Yes.
When are we going to get
So let me just, if you don't mind, let me just go through some of the pros and cons. And this is coming from research. When I went to the National Academy in 2012, I did some research, some papers on body cams and the pros and the cons, and they've been pretty consistent across the board. So we are exploring it, as you've heard us many times. The mayor's, addressed it in not just this forum, but in our council meetings and our commission meetings. Our police commission voted in last month's meeting to move forward with the project and to recommend to the council to fund the project. I've been working with a vendor that I feel is probably the best in the industry right now. Oftentimes, like many other things, when there's a knee-jerk reaction to things, a lot of people want to jump in on the opportunity to make money. So we have people that are typically a uniform supplier or a radio supplier, like, oh, we see an opportunity here, let's design and get a market a body cam. But the company that I'm looking at is called Axon. They're out of Las Vegas. They've been in business for 25 plus years. They are the creator of the Taser. That's what they became known for originally, but they have really produced a high-quality body camera. Which I'll get into, but this is some of the advantages that has shown through research. Provides objective video footage of an incident from officer and civilian perspective. DA Hoovler, I'm sure you would love to expedite cases through the court process with clear-cut evidence. It's not just someone's word or proving it, it's there. It did or didn't happen if it's caught on the camera. Can increase agency transparency and increase officer accountability. I think that's why we're here today. We want to increase accountability, transparency. I think it's one of the major things. It can reduce personnel complaints. It doesn't absolutely reduce them, but it can reduce them. Studies show that there's a significant reduction in them. Enhances the safety of the public and police. May help de-escalate confrontations as both the officer and the civilian know they're being recorded. That goes both ways. Not only does the officer act more professional, a lot of times the civilian that they're encountering, when they know they're being recorded, act in a different manner. This is not my words, this is stuff that I've pulled from research. Can protect against false allegations of police misconduct. You saw last week when I put up about our personnel complaints. Some of them we can't prove either way because it's one word versus the other. We have no real hard factual evidence, so that's going to help us. Provides an opportunity for training and supervisory review of officers. So if we see that the officer is doing something wrong, we could observe it through their body camera and we could take remedial action. You're asking, what do we do with those bad officers? There's another opportunity for us to address those actions. We're going to be able to see that firsthand. However, let's not get confused because with positive and pros, there's also disadvantages. So this is a big thing. Privacy concerns when recording victims, witnesses, suspects, and children in vulnerable situations. We're going to have to go into people's homes. There's a privacy issue there. We're going to have to address that in policy. There's going to be some residents that do not want us in their home. There's going to be some interviews of witnesses that do not want that camera on. So these are some of the challenges that we're going to be faced with. There's a substantial expense. As the mayor said, we're looking at $1.5 million to implement this project. That does not include, I need someone to manage it. I need staff. There's a lot of resources.
That's the most important. That's the most important.
So my proposal to the council will include a staff member to manage this, because we're going to be pulling a tremendous amount of video on a daily basis. Someone has to manage that, not just for in-house purposes, but the discovery aspects of it. They go along with the criminal justice reform, where all video has to be turned over to the district attorney's office within a short period of time. That's going to include that. There's going to be volumes and volumes. Now with the FOIL laws and the redaction or removal of 50A, they are no longer protected. That body cam is no longer going to be protected by personnel record. So they're going to be subjected to FOIL. So I need someone to manage that. There's a lot of logistical resources that are going to be needed. And when we talk about that cost of $1.5 million, we're not talking about just the body cameras. That's the cheapest part of the whole program. These cameras are $699. The cost comes with the licensing, the software, and the storage. That's where we get hit. The story.
I do want to ask a question, Chief. When you do anticipate on getting these body cams, how do you plan on utilizing them? Are you going to have everybody wear them, or are you going to have them on every time they encounter a civilian instead of just having them on all day, or how is this going to go?
So I already have a member of my staff researching the best practices. I've already read the ACLU recommended policy. We will adopt the policy that meets the accreditation standards that fits our department the best. I have not read a single policy out there or any article that says that they should be on every second of the day. I have not seen that. My proposal will be to put a camera on every individual, including myself, when I am in public. I'm not going to trade them out. They're going to be assigned if it's accepted. Again, that's a big amount of money that the city has to agree to. So we will work through those, and I want to hear the feedback from the panel as what the recommendations are. What would you like to see in that policy?
Well, I definitely would like to see the body cams, and I feel like if you guys are going to get the body cams, for me personally, I feel like every time you encounter a civilian, that's when your body cam should be activated. From the time you say hi or approach them to the time you walk away.
So that's pretty standard, and I'll get into that. Let me just go through a couple more disadvantages. There's a physical and mental health issue associated with the officers continuously being under close scrutiny. So officers are already being scrutinized for every little thing that we do. We are expected to be above par on everything we do. The slightest little mishap we have, there's a lot of talk they should be fired, moved on. These are human beings that have families. This is just another layer of oversight that does, and again, according to research, has an impact on their mental health. So that's something else we're going to have to consider as we go through this. There's some limitations posed to the camera's field of view and the failure of officers to activate. So the cameras typically are positioned on the officer's chest. The officer may be looking over there. So what the officer is seeing may not be captured on the video camera. So without us addressing that publicly and letting people know, it's not going to capture every single thing. There's going to be some criticism back and forth, like why didn't that catch it? The officer didn't turn it on. No, the officer may have turned it on, but it just depends on how the officer's body was bladed. We did some demonstrations with these in a training scenario, and when the officer's hands are in front of them, whether it's talking to somebody, writing, utilizing a weapon or a device, it blocks the camera view. There's a potential. It depends on how the officer positions himself. It's not 100% going to capture every single thing. And there isn't a platform that I'm aware of yet that attaches to someone's head so it goes with the eyes. I don't even know if that's something safe right now. But
Excuse me, Chief.
RoboCop.
Yeah. The general feel I get from the public and the citizens is that it's a pro. Body cams is a pro. It brings more of an easy feeling with the public knowing that each cop has a body cam.
Yes.
Whether it could be seen this way, this angle, as long as every cop has one. This is the general feeling I'm getting from the public. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I agree, and I've received a lot of positive comments as well, even from my own staff are looking forward to that because they know also that some of those allegations that are made that have never been able to be proven, they could say, hey, look at my body camera. So we understand that, and I'm supporting it. I'm not against it
On
at
to the
all.
limitations part and how we're addressing it through the technology.
So the platform that I'm looking at, as I explained to the mayor, if we're going to do it, I want to do it right. I want to buy one for everybody, and I want to buy the most advanced product that there is. So the platform we're looking at, it's the most advanced design. It has the same field of view as the human eye, so it's not like it's gathering this huge field of view that the officer can't see. Then afterwards, when we critique it, we're like, well, how could the officer not have seen that? It's in the camera. So they've designed it to match, to the best of their abilities, the field of view of the human eye. It does adjust to night vision automatically. There are some amazing features that we could do, and as part of the initial platform that I had proposed, that there's sensors that could be attached to our tasers, to our weapons, to the lights in our cars, to the shotgun racks in the car. So as soon as those items are removed from your holster, it triggers the body cam. So if there's a heat of the moment situation that the officer is responding to immediately, we get scared and we get tunnel vision. That may not be the first thing we go to do is turn on that body cam. Sometimes it's our life that we need to take care of first, or someone else's life. So you have that concept as well to deal with. This camera also has a feature to help us with that as well. It's called a buffering feature. So the camera is basically on all the time, but it has a looping mechanism. So we could set it up for up to 2 minutes, that it's constantly looping and recording over itself. But if it's activated, whether the officer activates it manually or it's activated by one of the magnetic devices, it loops back and catches everything that happened previous to it. So with the vendor, they showed an example of an officer who was engaging someone, ends up turning into a foot pursuit. During the foot pursuit, the person he was chasing turns around and shoots at the officer, ends up shooting back at him. The officer, in the heat of the moment, never turned on his body camera. You can see once he settles in the video and gathers himself and makes sure everything is good, he turns it on. He intentionally goes to turn it on. It was already catching everything because it looped. So the program that we're looking at is, I believe, is the top-notch program right now. It's state-of-the-art. Part of the program, by doing a 10-year platform, is every 2.5 years we get updated with the most modern technology that the company has. So it's not like we buy this and 10 years from now we're still using old equipment. We're getting every 2.5 years, it would be updated brand new equipment.
Do you guys plan on having body cams in the year 2020? Is that the anticipation?
Well, the commission's recommendation to the council was to do it. The council will make a determination on whether to fund it. It's a 10-year commitment. My guess is that we will fund it. And so by the end of 2020, depending upon how long it takes to get them in place, get the training, get all the protocols in place. But it's not only the $1.5 million, as the chief said, it's going to take staffing and other commitments. But, well, we're broke, though. We're going to do it.
Which in turn takes us, which in turn kind of puts us in a vicious loop that we turn around, go right back to where we were in the very beginning.
Defunding.
The defunding.
Exactly.
And just for clarity's sake, let me lean in. Just for clarity's sake, we're not talking about defunding the police, but there are those factions out there that are talking about defunding police departments, which I personally don't think is a good idea. But nevertheless, this takes us right back to the beginning. If we're pulling funding and we see what we see in the total scheme of things, the $9 million and change that Middletown is budgeted in the total scheme of things, when I look at other budgets for police departments around the country, especially, my connection through police departments, through chaplaincy, that $9 million at the end of the day is a drop in the bucket. And we see what's being done here. So if we defund the police, but now we're bringing in a program that's going to require more funding, I mean, it's a vicious circle. Where do we stop? Where do we say, let's make sure that the police have the necessary resources so that we can accomplish the task at hand instead of pulling those resources away. Because we do have other resources in this community that will reach the needs, and those are being moved around and done as well. I mean, the Bears talked to quite a bit of it, and with the Parks and Recreation, with the police academy and the police chiefs and all of those things and those collaborations that are going on. So we want to make sure that we're intelligent when we look at what that word defunding means, that this would cut out a program.
Can I ask a question? Is because when we talk about funding, again, this $9 million, I don't know what the other police budgets are, but like, is a lot of this even necessary to the extent that it's necessary?
If
Like,
you
can
pull
you-
out one of those items in there, and I'll explain it to you, and you tell me if it's necessary.
Well,
Well, the uniform and the dry cleaning. I mean, that's a lot of expense. I'm not saying that they're not needed, but I mean,
Just this pair of pants is $100. The shirt is about 80 some dollars. The dry cleaning the shirt is about $4 per shirt, and the pants are $7 per shirt.
but and I don't want to sound ignorant. I don't want to sound ignorant, but I do want to ask the question.
That's part of the FOP. That's the fraternal, that's the police union, that's contractual. So if you don't put it here, it's going to be someplace else.
Somewhere else in the
It's
contract,
dollars.
okay.
It's dollars.
That's a bargained item that
I
is
don't want us
there.
to get off track. I don't want us to get off track because we're moving in the right direction. It is a circle. It can either be a negative feedback loop or it can be a positive. What we're hearing is that
I think it's gonna be a positive.
We're hearing the cameras are positive, and it's a win-win for the community. It's a win for the officers because you've got two things that you address. That's accountability
Yes.
versus liability.
Yes.
The cameras take care of that. What I like about it is that we're moving into 21st century policing. It's not
Yes.
just the cameras, but what else, the things that we're talking about doing will enable us to meet the objective to do what we're supposed to do in terms of making sure, I think we're on the right track to have it done before April, Mayor.
Well, it needs to be adopted, we better be, because it needs to be adopted by the council in April and presented to the
But
state.
when we talk about the cameras, you talk about, it's the old razor blade model. Everybody that knows anything about it knows it's not the cost of the camera.
and if you're
That's
going,
not where the money's gonna cost you. My questions would be, you've already answered chain of custody, because it's gonna be the officers chain of custody, the officers are responsible for handling that. But what's the retention time on the footage?
So that's something we would have to work out. We'd have to go with the best practices and the requirements of the law. I've seen some stuff, like the ACLU wants to keep it for 3, if not forever, but that also comes with an expense that you have to pay for that storage. So we would probably work with the district attorney's office to see what the recommendation is. We would work with the accreditation standards to see what the recommendation is. That's why we're trying to learn from other people's experiences that have already implemented these programs and get the best practices.
and if you buy 70, that's $48,930. That's just buying them.
Yes.
That's not, without, far as not having the employees working and
Wow.
everything. So so when you look at the budget, you gotta add,
Right.
Your real expense, look, body cameras, we're not talking about a new novel idea. They've been around.
Right.
The reason they've never taken off is because of the expense. And it's the expense, it's the software and the storage. And it's not even the storage and the software do cost money, but it's the people that have to be able, there has to be 2 or 3 officers in a department, that there's somebody there all the time that has the ability to retrieve, sanitize, and transmit all that information via FOIL to the district attorney's office, whatever. Newburgh has body cams. We deal with a tremendous backlog trying to get it, and often we get body cam footage from the city of Newburgh that has not been sanitized. And then now it requires my people to go through it. If your department is going to get body cams, then you do it right. And I think even 1.5 million is low, because I think you're going to require more people that's going to have to do it. Because if you come in and you have a body cam on, and you're interviewing somebody and their tax returns are laying on the table, that's going to have to be sanitized. There's some protocols across the country that if, I'm wearing a body camera in your house and it shows all your family pictures on the wall, all of that should be taken out. Somebody's going to have to go through and take a hard look at that to make sure that what's in there is taken out. And then with the discovery rules we have in the state of New York, you're going to have to get this turned over to the DA's office, within 15 or 20 days. And I know it sounds like, oh, that's a long time. It's not a long time the way things work, but you can go, if you can afford it, you can do no wrong with body cams. But I've been saying that since the original pilot program I saw in 2005. And make no mistake, the technology will get better, everything will get better through time, and even though you have a contract, all of those companies will eventually want to upgrade, and it'll cost more. You just look at the information systems, you have Impact, right? One of the premier things that we got in Orange County years ago, a records management system, they've been sold and bought 2 or 3 times since then, and now all they want to do is keep asking for money, am I right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have that same thing, because I believe that your chief, I think he's extremely well schooled on what he's talking. I think they are the top of the line program, but also, I'm telling you, there's a movement out there, somebody wants to buy them. And they may be bought by another company down the road. So, again, body cams, absolute way to go, best thing you can ever do, but be prepared, it's going to cost. And the real cost is the person that's going to sit there and have to try to figure out, okay, here's what needs to be taken out, and then a lot of times they're going to wind up calling the DA's office and say, here's what we got. And how do you want this? What are we going to do? We can't take this out without changing the character and nature of what we're looking at. So I think it's an absolute win-win for the city of Middletown.
I think so too.
And as long as everybody understands going into it, it's going to be a hit money-wise, but like the mayor said, you never go over the tax cap. Joe, you got money laying all over you.
Not really.
But there's one other thing that we keep leaving out of it, and I've never heard the argument whenever I hear about it, okay? And I went back and did the research because it is a win-win. It's an investment. It's not an expense. And I'll tell you why it's an investment. It's an investment because when you got to pay out a settlement for the killing of a Tamir Rice, when you got to pay out a settlement to George Floyd's family, when you got to pay out a settlement for every situation where it's happened as a result of something that had taken place, what I'm concerned about is that becomes, unfortunately, and I don't like the idea, the cost of doing business. People are killing people, and they don't have any way of validating what happened. But if we can prevent from having to pay out a settlement because we spend money on training, if we can prevent from somebody losing a life, a 12-year-old or any individual, then the $1.5 million and the expense that it takes to pay for it and all of the other associated costs can be considered something that's done positively as opposed to paying out a settlement. And rather than somebody going to jail like they should when they kill an unarmed black man for no apparent reason, and they end up paying a settlement. This is a good use of the money.
Well, I think we're all agreeing on that. So we promised that it would be 90 minutes.
So we should wrap it up. So I think we came together because we want results after this. This is all about results. So
We're going to schedule another one.
But I think the results, we got to talk about the results for today, because I think we have some results.
We do.
Yes.
We're all in agreement not to defund the police.
Yes.
We skipped over demilitarizing because we don't have that right now in Middletown, so that's really not on our agenda. And as far as
We're going to help with the recruiting.
we want to figure out how we can get and Freddie and Bishop more involved with it and see if we can make this a curriculum. And me too. More so, starting in middle school, bringing it into high school and keeping it going. So maybe Aunt Williams and Bishop and Freddie can figure out the school thing, and then I come in. And then as far as body cams, we're ready.
We ready.
We'll take the hit. We'll take the financial hit.
Dave, just one question.
Working with,
any
we really
communities
got to
in Orange
remember,
County
we
have
got to
applied?
work with the mental health.
Yes, Bishop.
That's
Yes.
something important, because you got them out there.
Yes.
I see them all the time on Sunday.
We'll do it on we'll address the mental health on the next agenda. If you have ideas for the next meeting, which will probably be
Education.
around, August 11th or so, send an email and we'll try to put together something.
Okay.
I consult with Bishop Rollins and
How many of these do we have before we,
till we're done.
I mean, we got until April, right? Like once.
No. We need to adopt, we don't adopt anything here. This panel's going, every document that we get,
Recommendation.
whether it's a letter, whether, we can recommend, we can do whatever we want at the end. That'll be presented to the police commission. The police commission will review some of the things that we're already going to have taken action on, like the body cameras, but we're going to present a final document to the common council.
Okay.
And then the common council will then adopt it prior to April and file it with the state.
Oh, okay.
So this is more to get the issues out there
Okay.
and get ideas. We're hearing you. The chief is hearing you. The commission, Debbie Mills is back here. She's a member of the police commission. The other members are I'm sure, watching at home.
Okay.
And we're going to take those ideas and we're going to put them into a program.
Beautiful.
Dave, one question on the polygraph. Is any police department in Orange County doing polygraph? State police? Okay.
They don't wear cameras, though.
They're being mandated to.
They don't wear cameras now.
Nope.
Don't take me there.
And that was the issue.
Wear cameras.
We know why they don't work.
Hey, we know why they don't wear cameras, so don't take me there.
Yeah. Why they don't even wear cameras?
Yeah, don't go there.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, thank you,
Not
everyone.
take me there.
The mics are going to be hot for a couple minutes while they
Take me
turn
there.
everything down, so be careful.
I'll go, but I don't know if you're ready for that. Don't take me there.